Hello, and today we're going to be talking about the Business Wars podcast, specifically the dating app wars. That's the one that I did, and we're just going to talk a little bit more about that one and kind of go in a little bit more depth about the companies that are involved in the dating apps and just kind of everything that kind of goes underneath of all of that. So without further ado, we'll get started. So first, we're going to talk about the industry of the dating apps. As a lot of us know, the dating app industry is pretty huge, is pretty popular, especially in the high school, college um, age range, and that's just generally speaking. But there are definitely a lot more age ranges that's very popular in. And so, with that being said, we can see that in the life cycle of the dating apps that it's really in the maturity stage just because of how established a lot of these companies are. Some of the big names that come to mind when thinking about the maturity stages of the dating app industry would include Tinder, Bumble, Match. You can go on and say things like eHarmony, Hinge, just a whole bunch of different ones, and there's more still coming out to this day. But really, Tinder, Bumble, Match, those are really kind of three of the big ones that are in the maturity stage. They've been around in this game long enough where they're now established. They're multi millionaire or billionaire companies. I mean, they are they're here to stay. They're here in the maturity stage of the life cycle of the dating app industry, anyways. Some of the things that come to mind when talking about the maturity stage of different companies like Tinder, Bumble, and Match would be that there's a lot of job security with these companies. So if you get in as an employee of one of these companies, the job security is pretty good. It's not they're not in a stage in their life cycle where they could go out of business. Whether that be the growing stage or any other of the stages, they're pretty much well established. They're here to stay, like I said. So job security with these companies are pretty good. High brand recognition, like I started off this. I think everyone can agree that Tinder, Bumble, and Match are three huge names that just about anyone that doesn't live underneath of a rock will know as soon as you say it. And also the maturity stage, really what comes to mind with these guys is that not only do they have high brand recognition, but they also have millions of users and customers, not only here in the United States, but throughout the world. And with that being said, just the amount of users that they do have really also helps them lock themselves into the maturity stage of the life cycle, meaning that they're not going anywhere. They're here to stay. They've been here for a little bit, and there's much more to come. So looking at that, and now looking at the pestles, we can see that there's certain aspects in the pestle thing that doesn't really necessarily apply to the dating apps, but some of them that do apply would be social factors. So really having, again, high population for not only the United States, but in the world, having high populations, the ages of the users that are here on these dating apps are very wide range. So it gives them a lot of different feedback and a lot of different, I guess you could say, factors within the social factors in themselves. And really, again, looking at, age range specifically in the 22 to 26 age range, really they have the same interests, and really anyone that's on these dating apps have the same interests in mind. That would be that they want to date or they want to find someone to talk to that maybe could go to the next step in their relationship. They're there for the same reason. And again, that's another huge social factor that drives these dating apps. And that's really one of the big factors here in Pestle. Another big factor in Pestle is their technology factors. Obviously, the whole dating app industry is really driven off of technology factors. You're never gonna see, Tinder or Bumble being used on a newspaper. It's impossible just the way that it's set up. That's just an example. You're never going to see them on any kind of paper products or anything like that. That's just not how their company goes. You're mostly going to see them on cell phones these days. You could also see them on a top computer or a laptop computer. Really, just the whole technology factor behind these dating apps is really the driving force behind this industry. You're not going to find, like I said, you're not going to find them physically out in the world trying to promote what they do, or try to promote dating in any aspect. Like I said, technology factors are huge when it comes to this. Legal factors too are big when it comes to Pestle. Obviously, there is always risk when you meet someone, especially for the first time, that you don't necessarily know. And so unfortunately, you've seen cases in the past that health and safety of the users have not been there. There's been people that have been, abducted, that have unfortunately been killed, that have just a lot of different things that are not necessarily good for the health and safety of users. So the legal factors of Pestle are huge, and also the equal opportunities with these companies are also a big thing. Having equal opportunities for all different types of genders, and really their preference as far as what they're looking for, having equal opportunities is huge. A good example of this is that with the company eHarmony, they started out actually as a Christian-based company that were only really focused on having Christians meet Christians, and that was really their main focus. Well, then they started realizing that there was a lot more. They can make a lot more money if they branch out to different types of religions. So that's when they started branching out into Buddhism, Judaism, things like that for people. And then one day there was a gay man that wanted to get on eHarmony to find a man the same sex as him. And unfortunately, eHarmony did not offer that. So that's a lack of equal opportunities as far as that goes. And then that guy actually sued eHarmony. eHarmony lost, and then they were forced to having to make a branch in eHarmony to cater with all of the gays and lesbians. And so the legal factors in there again is another huge thing within the industry of dating apps, making sure there's equal opportunities, making sure that the health and safeties of users are there. Those are really the legal factors of Pestle. So now Pestle is completed, we're going to be going on to the Porter's analysis. So really the first one is the threat of new entry. So talking about a person or a company that wants to get involved within the dating app industry. As we all know, dating app industry is a hugely popular here in the United States and also around the world. So having a new person, a new company wanting to come in and start their own dating app is not uncommon. But here's kind of the breakdown of how the new threat of entries coming in really stacks up against each other. So really brand loyalty is the first one. I know for myself, I can be a good example of this, where users are not loyal to their brand. So I know for me, I use the dating app industry a lot. I have different profiles on different apps. So I have a Tinder account, I have a Bumble account, I have some other ones. But really that shows that I'm not loyal to any brands. I'm kind of out there looking to find which one is best for me. And with that, having my profile on different accounts can also increase me finding that right person. And so that's really the brand loyalty is super low on that. So that's kind of a low threat, which also means that you can have a new company come in, and someone like me that uses these dating applications, I go right on that new one and I try it out and see how it is. So that really helps with a new company starting up, that users are not loyal to their brand. Economy of scales, that's another one. Cost advantages are high. So that kind of is a medium threat there. And then increasing users' activities with the same format, so lowering costs. So really, a lot of these apps are using kind of generally the same format, And so that really can again lower the threat of having a new company come in. And because all they can do is they can make the same format or generally the same type of application. So like for instance, Tinder was the first one that came out with swiping left to right. And now you see Bumble doing that. You see a lot of other dating apps using that. So really, if another company were to come in, they could also do that format. And really that would be the main, or not the main, but it's one of the is one of the applications that they can use, that where users and their activities with the users and the activities that they do, it can really again scale these users to go to a new company or a new application, just because of how similar it is to other other applications they already use. Capital requirements, some of the big ones that come to mind, especially when starting up a new company, would be buying specialized coding programs. So obviously with them being all on the technology side of things, there's a lot of coding that goes into these apps. Obviously, coding is a huge part, if not the main part, of how these companies and applications run. And so buying these specializing coding programs is really it would really be a huge requirement on a new company's end anyways. Buying buildings for an office, that's really another big one. As we see Tinder, Bumble, a lot of these big companies, they already have buildings there for their companies so that physical employees can go there and they can do their job. And it really is another driving force behind a capital requirement and making sure that they have what they need when they go and launch their application. Hiring staff and external resources like lawyers, that really again is a huge capital requirement. Making sure that you have the right hiring staff, you have the right amount of people there. Also on the external resources, having lawyers there, as we saw just a couple minutes ago, that man that sued eHarmony. Obviously, eHarmony needed lawyers for that to combat that. And so having lawyers is huge. That's another capital requirement. So with that, again, just having those capital requirements, you can see that the threat is low with them. And yeah. So the next one we're going to be doing, we're still going to be talking about the Porter analysis, and it's going to be the competition within the industry. So competition within the industry, as we touched on before, there's many different dating apps today, which makes the competition very high. Brand loyalty of the customers, again, as we mentioned before, with me being the example, is very low. Tinder and Bumble, you can it can be seen that Tinder, actually, the reason why Bumble got started was something that happened within Tinder with the CEOs. They were having relationships with each other, and then one day they broke up. Long story short, and and they got mad at each other. So one of those people actually went ahead and started Bumble. It was actually the woman that started Bumble and made it more of a woman-based company and really focused in on kind of women being the first ones and just kind of making it more of a woman's overall atmosphere in comparison to Tinder. So really really having different people bounce around from different companies, or even starting at Tinder versus Bumble is a huge example in that, where someone that works at a specific dating app can go ahead and maybe one day after seeing how they do things, that company does things, and really getting the whole general gist of it, they can go ahead and quit their job and start their own dating app and try to make it something better, something different, like Bumble did after she left from Tinder. And so again, that also increases the competition within the industry. Having similar apps across the industry too, like we touched on before, a lot of these different applications have different, or have similar, my bad, have similar structures to them as far as swiping left or right, or what they're looking for. And after they match, they can talk for free, or they can video chat. Really, a lot of these applications in the industry are pretty similar within each other, and so that also creates competition within the industry. Talking about buyers, the power of buyers slash customers. So cost of switching. Most of the apps are free at first. So Tinder, for example, or Bumble, they're free. They're free unless you want to pay for them. Really, you can pay for Tinder Gold, which basically shows you who matched with you right off the bat or who likes you right off the bat. Or you can take the free version and just keep swiping until you find that person that matched with you or liked you first. And so with that being said, with Tinder and Bumble being free and a lot of these other companies being free, cost of switching, also known as really brand loyalty, is the threat's high because customers can switch throughout different company or throughout different applications, and it can be big. And so again, brand loyalty can vary. Medium threat, really with that, what I'm trying to say is that with Tinder and Bumble, like I said, they can go out for free at first. The users can go there for free and swipe as much as they want, but they can also buy like Tinder Gold, for example. And when you start paying for something, obviously your brand loyalty is going to go up. You're going to try to stay with that application for as long as you can, just because you're going to be more prone to be with them and not vary away from them, just because of you are paying money to be there. And so that's why brand loyalty can vary. You look at someone that just does this on a free scale, their brand loyalty, they can go anywhere. But if you have someone that necessarily is paying to be on the application, it's going to be harder for them to leave. And so that's why I say that brand loyalty can vary and is kind of a medium threat when it comes to that. Large population demand. And really with that, what I'm trying to say is that from age range 22 to 26, a lot of people are looking to kind of start their next step in their lives, whether that would be dating someone or going for a long-term relationship, kind of them thinking of them in the future. And so it's a really high demand for those age ranges. So that's the power of those customers are huge. It really drives up the price for having that application, just because there's such a huge demand with these people that you can kind of set your price if you're an app like Tinder. So for whatever reason, if Tinder, for example, wanted to stop doing their free stuff and start charging people just to use their applications, yes, they would see some people leave just because there's other applications out there that still are using the free stuff. But at the same time, they also kind of control the market to some degree, just because they are such a huge name that people would be willing to buy to buy that, to get into that application, to stay on there. And so really, just because the demand is so high, people want to meet other people and start a relationship and things like that. So that again can also increase the power of buying or the power of the customers or the buyers for this matter. So threat of substitutes. So really, dating applications are kind of unique in the sense that it's hard to substitute that. Really, if you think about before technology was out, before cell phones were out, how did people meet? So really physically meeting or dating. So whether that be just walking down the street and meeting someone and kind of having a conversation and seeing where that goes, to having your friends do a blind date with other friends that they know, or really meeting people at the workplace. Those are really before technology was around and before any of these dating applications online anyways started going. That's usually how people met. That's how people started a relationship or started dating. And so that's still obviously a threat for the dating applications, but especially now with the pandemic going on and the coronavirus going on, you're less likely to see people wanting to go out and physically meet or date or go on physical blind dates of any sort, just because of they're worried about their safety. So with that being said, it's still a threat for these companies that are doing the online dating like Tinder and Bumble, but at the same time, the threat isn't necessarily high, but it's not low either. It's kind of a medium threat. So those are really your threat of substitutes there. And also looking at kind of the key resources for inputs within the dating apps, so really how these companies do well with how they do success, and really what keeps them driving, the inputs that go into making them as successful as they are. Really, some of the physical resources are employees. So you need a different kind of employee with online dating. So you can do your coders. Obviously, those are your main guys that are there to make sure that the website works as it needs to. You have your marketing people that can go out and make TV ads to promote your the application. You have your legal team for anyone that might sue you as far as for health and safety, or not having equal opportunities like we saw earlier before with eHarmony. And you also have your upper management that really controls everything. So your CEOs and people like that. Really, another physical resource that goes into the inputs with this would be the computers and equipment. So obviously you need these computers for coding, for communication within your own company, as also maybe some external communications, for instance, for customer help if they need help or they have a complaint or things like that. So really that's kind of another physical resources. Buildings are another one. And so they're for office spaces, for physical meetings, and also meeting stakeholders. Really, as much as all of these online dating apps are really out there and they're more virtual than anything else, having a physical place to meet is huge, especially for your actual company and your physical resources. As mentioned before, buildings are huge. Looking at non-physical resources. So obviously, in order to have your application there and working, you need coding software. So that's not a physical resource. That's something that happens on your computer, happens virtually through technology. So having the coding software is huge. Security software to protect your coding software, like a firewall when it's actually up on the internet, is huge. Obviously, having internet and Wi-Fi are just no-brainers when it comes to physical or to non-physical resources. In order for your app to even work, you have to have your users on internet, and they have to be, if they're not at home, they need to be on some sort of Wi-Fi or some kind of internet. And so really, without internet and Wi-Fi, your application just simply doesn't work. And so having those as non-physical resources are huge inputs when it comes to making your company in the dating world, your dating app world, successful. So looking at one of the main applications here for the dating apps, no brainer, Tinder. Tinder is huge. I think if you were to ask anyone 18 years to 26 years old, what's their first downloadable application when it comes to dating apps, I think Tinder would definitely come to mind first, or you hear a lot of people saying that just because it is so popular. So looking at some of the customers that kind of use Tinder, obviously you have to be 18 years or older to legally use this app. So 18 years and up. Really, again, your highest target range within Tinder, the people that you see use it the most, are ages 22 to 26. And again, you can be of any gender, looking for any other type of gender when it comes to Tinder. So it's really wide open as far as that. Also, again, bringing that back to the equal opportunities part of it. Competitors for Tinder, as we mentioned before, Bumble is kind of the rival just because of how Bumble started, just with the fallout with Tinder. So Bumble is a huge competitor. Match was the first one that actually came around when it came to the dating app industry. So Match is huge, and just underneath the Match umbrella, you have different application dating apps like Plenty of Fish and Hinge that fall within Match's umbrella. So they not only control their own, but they also control a lot of other different applications. And for that reason, they're huge competitors of Tinder. Facebook dating. I didn't know about this till I actually listened to the podcast, but Facebook has a dating part to their website. And that, again, is a huge competitor just because of how big Facebook is in general. And obviously eHarmony too. eHarmony was really the second big company that came around after Match. And just because of how long they've been around for and how popular they are, they're a huge competitor for Tinder. Looking at the value proposition, really Tinder tries to make themselves different. As much as they're similar to their to their competitors, they try to make themselves different. So really low cost to the user at first. So again, touching on that again, it would be that at first when you get on Tinder, you can use the app for free. You can match with people for free. You can talk with people for free. Um, and that in itself can be different from other dating apps, like for instance Christian Mingle. You have to pay a good chunk of fee per month to even use their app or even be on there. And so really, some people, if they're not too serious about it, won't go on applications that make you pay straight up front to use their application. So Tinder tries to be different in that way, as far as making sure that they try to make it low cost for the users at first, and if they're willing to pay, then they can, and it'll make their experiences even better on that application. Again, Tinder was the first company to invent the swipe, so swiping left or right for yes or no, if they want to match, or if they don't want to match. That's really kind of a big making them different between different companies now. Again, you can see that Bumble has now incorporated that same swipe tool, but at the same time, Tinder was the first one to use it, and because they were the first one to use it, it became widely popular, especially among college age students. They first introduced Tinder in college campuses with college students, and the whole swiping aspect of it really made it kind of addicting for your students. It was kind of almost quote unquote like a game to them. And so having that swipe mechanism really made it different for these college students in comparison to Match or eHarmony, or really anything that they've seen up to that point. So having the swipe tool there was made Tinder a huge made it very different as far as when users went to go use their applications. It allows users to connect with any genders. Again, you look at eHarmony at first, they weren't like that. You look at Christian Mingle, they're not like that. You look at another application called Upward, they're again not like that. They're really focused in on making a man meet a woman, or in the same religious aspect or anything like that. They're not really out there willing to allow users to meet with any other gender or religion or things like that. So Tinder's not like that. They like to allow any type of person, any gender, any religious background, anything like that, to meet up with anyone. Pretty much anything goes with Tinder. You can meet up with any kind of person, no matter their race, religion, gender, their whatever. And that is another big thing that Tinder tries to do to make them different. Again, you have big competitors like Bumble that also do the same thing. But again, Tinder tries to make it different, tries to make that different. And looking from in the past with Match and eHarmony and things like that, they were really one of the first people to jump on this train and allow users to connect with any kind of person. And also Tinder's kind of primarily known for one night stands, which is not something that they're really out there for at first. They're really out there to date, but Tinder can be used for one night stands to also dating. And that really, again, is another big thing that Tinder does that makes them different than the other. I almost think, in my personal time of using these different apps, Bumble's a little bit more classier, and they're not necessarily geared towards the one night stands. They're normally geared towards dating and kind of short-term and long-term relationships. And a lot of these different applications are kind of the same way. But Tinder, when that kind of comes to mind, you almost think of one night stands at first. And in that aspect, that's kind of how they're different from a lot of these different applications. So looking into the future and kind of looking at different applications that I've used throughout my time, some of the suggestions that I can give for Tinder, as far as the corporate level strategies go, is really, first off, is to increase to try to increase their profit. They can kind of implement something, and I know other applications do this, where they allow users who match, they can, instead of having that kind of strange, meeting and talking and kind of getting the conversation going, instead of doing that, what they do is that they actually play games together, um, so that they can almost have a talking piece to go off of after that game is over with. Like, you made this move during this game. Like, I thought that was interesting. Why'd you do that? Kind of a thing. That's kind of a good icebreaker and kind of a good way to do it. So Tinder right now doesn't have that, but it would be cool if they incorporated that. But also, with that being said, um, in order to play those games, they would have to do it at a price. The users would have to pay to go and use it. So that's another way. That's one way to increase profit. Another way to increase profit is charging a fee for a conversation between two people after a certain time. So really, say if you match with a person and you're having a good conversation and things like that, you only get a week of free talking before you have to start charging them to talk on your app. That is another way to increase profit, just because it takes usually more than a week for people to really get comfortable with each other and really get to know them, or really feel even comfortable with giving out other aspects of contact information, like their Snapchat or their Instagram or Facebook profile, or even their cell phone number. So really, that's another big way to increase their profit. Also, you see this a lot, even specifically with Hinge. They have a lot of different TV ads out there, and Tinder doesn't necessarily have a whole bunch of TV ads out there. Um, and really, that could also increase the people that come onto their website, just because of more awareness. Now you're reaching out to people on different platforms now, the TV platform anyways, and you're letting them know that, hey, here's Tinder, and this is what we do. And really, just the awareness can also bring more people in, and then eventually allow them to buy things like Tinder Gold, and that also can increase your profit. Diversification, that's huge. Tinder BFF, that's not a thing, but that could be a thing. I go off of Bumble. Bumble now also, not only do they have a dating branch to their application, but they also have something called Bumble BFF, which basically helps people that maybe just moved to a new area and don't have a ton of friends, or people that are just looking for new friends. They can go on Bumble and not go towards the dating side. They can go and find people just to be friends with and to meet up and to do different things with them. So Tinder doesn't do that yet, but kind of branching out into that realm would be a really big diversification move that they would make. Game playing, like I said before, when you match with someone, playing a game with them, that also could be a huge move for them. And then also, we know that Tinder and a lot of these different other applications are there to match people up with each other, whether that be for similar interests or other things like that. But they could also use that kind of same platform to let people search for sponsors. So, for instance, if someone, let's say, that ran like cross country or whatever, needed like a shoe sponsorship or something like that, someone to sponsor them, especially if they're like semi-pro or professional, having sponsorships like that, they can go on there and look for different companies that are willing to sponsor them. So things like Nike, Adidas, anything like that, having that where they can match up with them and have a conversation with them, really just making the first move of connecting the athlete with the sponsorship company. So that again could be huge for diversification with them, and that again would really help them out in the future. So in conclusion, it can be seen that dating apps are very, very popular, not only here in the United States, but also around the world. There's a lot of new opportunities for companies to enter this industry. Even at a mature life cycle right now, there's still a lot of wiggle room for different companies to come in and really try their hand at it and see how they do and see how people like their dating applications. New ideas for already established companies. So we just talked about that with Tinder, with the game playing or sponsorship, or even branching out with Tinder BFF. Things like that companies could do could be huge with them in the future. Industry competition is strong. As you can see, there's just a ton of different competitors within this industry. And with that being said, it can also make it difficult for new competitors to come in and do well, just because of how strong the industry is and how many competitors are already in this industry. And like I said before, online dating is very popular. So with that being said, there's always going to be a steady demand. At least for now, there's always going to be a steady demand to use these applications. So that is huge when it comes to that. When it comes to just making a business as successful as it is. And with steady demand comes things like using pestle and porter analysis to really make sure that your company is doing what it needs to, and maybe finding out strengths and weaknesses and things like that. But it all drives off of the point that there's a steady demand for online dating, especially during this pandemic right now. People don't want to go out and physically meet, just because they want to be safe as possible. So they turn onto these online dating applications to make sure that they stay as safe as possible. Again, increasing in the demands. So that's about it with this. This is just my sources. I just had a couple of pictures in there. So this is just a couple of my sources that are within my PowerPoint. But thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you got something out of this. Thank you.